To whom it may concern, America's in distress. With our future on the line, look around, it's a mess. We took a turn. Now everything you say is offensive, and we slowly losing our freedom. All
right, everybody, welcome to another segment here on Coal Region Discontent. It is election season, so this will be another candidate interview. I know it mostly seems like I have Republican candidates on here, but that's mostly because it's only Republican candidates that get back to me. Now, before we get started, if you could share the video, help get the voice out there. I like to do these things to make sure everybody makes an educated choice on the ballot when they go on. Well, this year it'll be November 8th. But if you could like and share the video, help get the voice out there. Today's candidate will be Carrie Lewis Delrosso, who is running for lieutenant governor. She is running alongside of Doug Mastriano, who's running for governor against Josh Shapiro. And we'd like to hear what she has to say about herself and maybe answer some questions just to try to get people to let her know her a little better, or, answer some questions, like I said, so they can make an educated decision on November 8th. Now, like I said, you can find us on YouTube, on rumble.com, on Facebook. We are also on Truth Social. We are on getter.com. All at Coal Region Discontent. And I'd like to start out by thanking you guys for your support. And hopefully you can make a good decision. Hopefully you can get out and vote, because I know there's a lot of candidates out there that say this is the most important election, but every election is important. So hopefully she'll be joining us soon here. All right. Well, here we are. Like I said, with Carrie Lewis Delrosso, who's running for lieutenant governor, alongside Doug Mastriano, who's running for governor. And if we could, maybe we'd let her tell us a little bit about herself. Just let us know who you are. And I know you're a state representative right now for, is it the 33rd district?
Yes. Yes. So I'm Carrie Lewis Delrosso, lieutenant governor nominee. I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and moved out to the Southwest, Western PA, to go to Pitt. And my roots go back far, and like I said, good old coal anthracite Scranton. We owned a small business, which was started by my great grandfather, who actually hauled anthracite coal. No, it's all kind of funny. I used to walk through the dumps to go to school. So that's a little bit about me. Growing up, my family continued the business until about 15 years ago, when my father was becoming handicapped, and my uncles, we kind of all went our separate ways. And I was a small business owner as well. I still am. I still have an LLC, a public relations, media relations, and marketing firm. It's just that I kind of let that sit when I became a state representative. I was a local borough councilwoman. I ran in 2017, knocked down 2,500 doors locally, and won by about, I think, 25 votes to get on local council, unpaid position, but cared about the neighborhood. And I was on council for about 2 years, and I decided to run for state house. I beat the House Minority Leader. He was in office for 30 years. I knocked on 13,000 doors, and it was because I thought the district was being somewhat ignored. And just so that I was able to bring that voice of a district that was being represented by a somewhat complacent individual in a leadership position to Harrisburg. And the unfortunate part and I loved my job, I was community servant, loved serving the public. And then the redistricting year came up, and they drew me out of the district. So that's what led me to run for lieutenant governor. I literally took a step back. My son was joking with me. He said, "Mom, are you going to retreat? What are you doing?" And I'm quite a fighter. So I decided to run for lieutenant governor. And here I am. We're 2 days out. And I'm sorry that we didn't get to do this interview any sooner, but my schedule has been a little wild, especially because I have 3 children at home. I'm a mother too. And having to juggle a state rep role along with a statewide race and 3 kids' schedules is a little bit insane, but we're doing it. And last night I got to go to the Trump rally and speak and be endorsed, I think, by President Trump. Gave me a shout out. Very cool. And I think that, one of the things that myself and the who's on the head of the ticket, Doug Mastriano, who's a wonderful person. He's going to be a great governor. He's a colonel in the Army, served, for 30 years, comes back here, sees what's going on in Pennsylvania, says, what? So ran for state Senate. And here he is now at the top of the ticket, and I'm honored to be on it with him and his wife. I mean, her and I have become definitely more bonded over time. She's a wonderful woman. I always say to Doug, it's better having two women on the ticket than just one. So we've had fun. We've been crisscrossing the state, getting out our message. And I think, one of the things that we're really trying to push right now is making sure that Doug, as our governor, will fight inflation. He will fully fund and fight for law enforcement because we want safe communities. And of course, parents having the opportunity to stand up for their children in schools right now and know what's going on in terms of curriculum transparency. And one of the things that I've learned is traveling the state is that we can be completely energy independent. And that's important for, all our energy, whether it be, coal, gas, electricity. It's so important. The district I represented had a lot of manufacturing shut down because a lot of the energy and the jobs had left. So I think the region that you're from can relate to that. And that's kind of, I'm the voice of the people. So, and I'm, like I said, 2 days out, we need to get out the vote. We need to tell people to make sure they vote. It's very important. So we can put a new day in PA under the Mastriano regime and work hard, because that's exactly what Doug and I both stand for, as the hardworking families of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I noticed that you've been busy. You've been all over the state, out at meet and greets, been out at rallies, been out actually meeting people. I mean, it seems like I have a lot of Republican candidates on here, but for some reason, a lot of Democratic candidates don't respond to me. So, but a lot of people talking on the election is the election integrity that's coming up. I know Doug runs a lot of things on his campaign about voter ID, things like that. I didn't know if maybe you had some thoughts on that and how we can secure our elections, even though they were secured for so long before they weren't.
Well, I'm in line 100% with voter ID on fair elections, ballot security, making sure that their vote counts, they have voter confidence when they get to the polls. But one thing that you have to recognize is that our election laws are old. I think they were codified in like 1938. And anytime we've tried to change them, especially under a Democrat governor, they get vetoed. The only way that we are going to fix elections or, fix the process in elections is by nominating and electing Doug Mastriano so he can appoint a Secretary of State that's actually going to follow through on fair elections. And I think it's so important.
Well, as Lieutenant Governor, you would be president of the Senate, and also
Right.
you would be at the head of the pardons board,
Right.
part of that. Now, a lot of my viewers ask me things when candidates are on here, like, what do they feel about second chances? Because they feel like when people get charges or anything, even though it's not a life sentence, it seems to follow them for life, and unless you can get the pardon, or because you can't run for public office, you can't work in certain schools, you can't do anything, you can't own a firearm. And me personally, I'm a Second Amendment absolutist. I feel like there shouldn't be infringements on it. I just think there should be tougher laws and penalties for people who commit crimes with guns.
Yes. So I would be the chair of the Board of Pardons. Right now, our crime has gone up significantly under the Attorney General, Josh Shapiro, who we're running against.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the bottom line is we need to protect our citizens, but we also need to protect, of course, our Second Amendment rights. And that's very important. And you're correct. People need to be punished for violent crimes accordingly, and they should not be let out of jail for those reasons. One of the things that I will say is that I got to visit a prison during the campaign, and also as a legislative, as a state representative, I got to see about how corrections and how it actually works. And when they actually are able to sit down as a board, it's almost like I worked in healthcare as a treatment team approach, to see if these people are actually ready to go back into society. And the family that, the victim's family has a say in it. So it's an interesting process. Although right now, what I'm seeing, and I truly believe, is that we're letting people off. Our DAs, some of our district attorneys that are more on the left hand side, are saying, hey, this isn't too bad of a deal. Let them out, or they get out of jail. There was something that was in the paper most recently about how Fetterman lets these people out, and next thing you know, they're out killing people, or they're back to the violent crimes. So, and better be safe than sorry is my attitude. And consequences, are definitely, you break the law, let the punishment fit the crime, kind of thing. So know that I'm going to be tough on it. And I think it's more so of us making sure that we have policies in place for second chance people that are can actually get back into society and work. I'm a true believer into the work release program, and making sure that people follow through on it, especially some, jobs out there and apprentice programs that are out there that would make sure that people are held accountable. I would not want to put someone out on the street that was, a violent offender. But if there was something, that, if a first offense and thing, and people need to get out and make sure they have a job and they're held accountable for, our workforce is actually in crisis right now. And I think it's important that we make sure that people have something to do, and they're not bored. They're not going to do drugs. So, I truly believe in that too.
Well, I just figured, if with the way our laws are, even in Pennsylvania, a lot like the current governor and stuff, they tout rehabilitation, all this, but then I've seen it in some people, they get rehabilitated, but then they still can't do anything because of either not being able to get a pardon, things like that. I mean, it's just an interest of a lot of people I know around here, ask questions on the pages and stuff. But you'll also be the president of the Senate, correct?
Yes.
And so a lot of people don't know that here in Pennsylvania, we have our own Senate, our own House of Representatives, and they meet to write legislation, and they're divided as well between Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, and what have you. And how do you feel as though maybe you could be maybe a force, maybe a person that could bring them together to work together, because being divided is what's causing a lot of the problems we have in the country and in the state.
Yes. And, I just got my third bill as a freshman signed into law. I have 3 bills in my first term signed into law by the governor. And it was by working with both the House, the Senate, and they were actually, they were voted on unanimously, which is great. So I am quite a bipartisan person when it comes to working with people. But at the same time, I think what people need to understand is how long it takes sometimes to get something through the House and the Senate, and then it will sit. And I think that that's where I will be an asset to the governor's office. And I think myself and Senator Mastriano have worked together on some things behind the scenes, and he sees how quick I move. I'm an action item girl, and if we need to be codifying things into law, in some of the regulations, the over regulations that have come over time, what I always say is one law might help one person and might hurt 9 others. So we have to be very conscious of that, making laws. And thing I'm so happy that I did was I traveled the whole state, and I was able to get to almost all 67 counties. But what you understand is how their representation and how they argue in caucus is part of why they are the way they are. So if I had my way, I would be pushing back to the constituent services and making sure that our local constituent services are being done properly, so people are not feeling, that laws are putting them in a bad spot. Government overreach, I'm totally against it. So I think that that's probably why I will be an asset to that. The other job that I will have is I will also chair the local government township commissions, like all the local government, which I embrace because I was a local leader for just a short period of time. But as a person who understands that your local decisions affect your pocketbook most, I think that that's where I will be an asset, I think.
Well, I know we've all seen a lot of government overreach, especially in the last 2 years, especially since the pandemic started. And I know a lot of people's issues on the table aren't exactly a lot that's being talked about in the news. On if you look on mainstream media, everything's about the abortion laws, the Roe v. Wade, the things like that. But I feel like there's other kitchen table issues that people like. I know you mentioned energy, but there's also like parents' roles in education, school choice, things along those lines that are really bothering people. I know I read a poll lately that said only 2% of most women even care about the abortion laws right now because they want to drive their cars and they want to be able to feed their families instead. So what you feel like uh are the kitchen table issues? What you feel like actually reaches out to the average Pennsylvania, not just Pennsylvania, but the country, I should say.
Well, and I just want to also let you know on the abortion issue, I am a pro-life mother of three, and I do believe in exceptions. I always have. And I know that there's been a lot of question about what myself and Doug can actually do at the top. And quite honestly, I've told people this and I set people straight on this, is that the Roe decision came back to the states but didn't change anything. And a lot of women are feeling threatened. And it's actually sad because Shapiro has really bought up enough TV to scare people into thinking that we are going to like stop them. I mean, my kids watch the YouTube and they also say, Mom, like, is Doug going to put you in jail for being a mom? And I'm like, so like, again, like the propaganda that they're using is actually pretty bad because quite honestly, and I've said this, is that we do have an abortion control act in Pennsylvania. And if anything changes or anything was to change, it would have to be legislated. And would, just like I said earlier, it would have to go through the House and the Senate and be approved and signed into law. And that's what your local representatives are doing. And some representatives, whether you be Republican or Democrat, that's your time to speak up. And that's who we elect at the local level to represent us in the state. So I've tried to educate some of my constituency on this, but some people are just too far gone on it. And it's sad because I truly believe that they just don't understand. And, quite honestly, I think everyone should kind of be pro-life or not, but at the same time, you have to believe in the circumstances, which is the life of the mother. It's very, very important. But yes, so and now to swing to what you're talking about, the kitchen table issue, which again, I don't think we talk about abortion at the kitchen table because, I do have a 11-year-old daughter and 12-year-old son and a 14-year-old son. It doesn't seem to come up. What we talk about is how much peanut butter costs, how much a box of Lucky Charms costs, how much Cheez-Its are a box when they're not on sale. Those are the things that quite honestly are hitting everybody. And I think it's important. It's important to know that our diesel fuel we are dipping, which will make our supply chain stop. And so during the shutdown, the Wolf shutdown, when he was telling everyone to run out and get toilet paper, yeah, well, guess what? We're going to have that cyclical coming back again. And that's what he scared people into staying home, stay home, stay home. Guess what? I mean, it's going to come back and bite us. Parents advocating for education. I think, we've been silenced enough. I spoke last night at the Trump rally. I did say out loud, look, my daughter is here. Every morning she would wake up and say, why can't I go back to school? My kids go to a neighborhood school, they're public education kids. And quite honestly, the fact that we were at the mercy of what, Allegheny County helps. It was to have a local school board that's Democrat led and being scared by someone like, the teachers union into saying, well, we're telling you not to go back to school. That affects us. The question I had, and I had all along, is what are you doing with our tax money then? So again, curriculum transparency in the school is a very hot topic. I sit down more now with my kids when they're home with me and I say to them, show me your paperwork. What are you learning in school? Because look, I'm starting to distrust the system. And I did have a situation with my son. He came home a couple of years ago with a pronoun pretest and he was 10 at the time. And I looked at it and I said, are you kidding me? You still believes in Santa. So, you got the right woman on the ticket for the job. we're gonna do some great things for Pennsylvania. It's about bringing family and faith and freedom back to PA. And that's what myself and Doug Mastriano are going to do.
Yeah, I feel honestly the last 2 years, I feel as though we have an entire generation that is behind now because of the shutdowns, which proved nothing. And there was all kinds of polls that came out afterwards saying it didn't stop infection spread. It didn't change anything. And like you said, a lot of people asked, like, well, I was still paying property taxes. I was still paying taxes to the school, but nobody was doing anything. And the kids were falling behind on the like virtual learning, which kids need hands-on learning. Kids need to be out in the world. But
Well, the school choice issue too, Mike, is very important because most parents want the choice. Some kids are better homeschooled, right? Some kids are better in private school. Okay, fine. My kids were used to that structure. It was interrupted by a government that shouldn't be interrupted. If you talk to any child psychiatrist, they will tell you kids need routine, they need structure. And quite honestly, I mean, that's the social component that disrupted our household during the pandemic was just as bad as COVID itself. So, I mean, like, they don't see that. I mean, they don't want to hear that. It's terrible.
well, I know you. I do want to thank you for coming on. I know you said you were short on time, but if there's anything you'd like to end with, I know the election is coming up right on Tuesday, and everybody, or you could use everybody's support. And say if you have a final thought, maybe.
Tell people to vote. Tell people who don't believe that their vote's going to count, call them on the phone and ensure them. If people need rides to the polls, get them there. Call people and tell them to vote. Rural Pennsylvania is definitely a place where we have been out and about. We've been out in the Southeast, the Southwest, Erie. And again, I'm from Scranton. I'm a homegirl from Lackawanna County, so I've been up there a lot too, is that we need people to get to the polls. And then we can drive it right out. And I truly believe that we're going to win this race. Senator Mastriano, Doug has really laid solid groundwork. It's completely amazing what I saw during the primary. And I think I've been an excellent kind of partner in this with him too, is that we just keep going. Him and I will be in Philadelphia tomorrow at 2 different events. And then we head up to, I leave from Allegheny and I head to Camp Hill for our watch party on Tuesday. So Mike, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate your patience with me.
Well, I'd like to thank you just for making the time for me to come on. Our region feels like we're sometimes the forgotten region in here by mostly the politicians that are in office right now. But, I wish you luck, and hopefully we'll get to see you again after the election.
Yes, get out the vote. Thank you so much. Have a great night. God bless.
Thank you. All right, guys. Well, that was Carrie Lewis Delrosso, and she's running for lieutenant governor. Like you said, she's running with Doug Mastriano. Their opponent is Josh Shapiro. He's on the Democratic ticket. And I will hope that you guys get out there and vote if you haven't already done the early voting here in Pennsylvania. It is on Tuesday, November 8th, and the polls close at 8 p.m. And I always say to people, if you don't vote, you can't complain. If you're not even going to take part in the process, then you shouldn't have anything to say about it. You should at least try. You should at least believe in the system while we have it. All right, but make sure you share this video. Make sure you like it, and if not, follow the pages. And remember to get out and vote. And thank you for tuning in. This is Coal Region Discontent, and our motto is, if you act stupidly, you get treated accordingly. Thank you. God bless.